The Mind Beyond Time, the Albert Einstein story. The curious beginnings. Albert Einstein was born on March 14, 1879, in the small German city of Ulm. His parents, Hermann and Pauline, were surprised when little Albert didn't speak until he was almost 3 years old. They worried something was wrong, but once he started talking, he asked deep questions about the world. As a child, Albert was quiet and thoughtful. He didn't like loud games or rough play. Instead, he loved puzzles, building card towers, and watching how things worked. His father gave him a compass when he was 5, and Albert was amazed how did the needle always point north. This mystery made him curious about invisible forces in nature. When Albert was 6, his family moved to Munich. School was hard for him because he hated strict rules and memorizing facts. He preferred learning on his own. His teachers thought he was slow because he asked too many questions. But at home, he read science books and played the violin, which his mother taught him. One of his favorite subjects was math. His uncle Jacob introduced him to algebra, calling it a merry science. Albert loved solving problems, calling math a puzzle where the truth hides but can be found. At age 12, he discovered a geometry book and studied it like an adventure story. Around the same time, a poor medical student named Max Talmud visited the Einsteins for dinner each week. Max brought science books and discussed them with Albert, feeding his growing love for physics. Though Albert struggled in school, his mind was always racing with ideas. He wondered about light, space, and time, questions that would one day change science forever. His childhood wasn't easy. Some thought he was odd, but his quiet curiosity was his superpower. The boy who spoke late and asked too many questions would grow up to become one of the greatest scientists in history. The compass and the violin, early fascination with science and music. When Albert Einstein was 5 years old, his father gave him a small pocket compass. Little Albert was amazed. No matter how he turned it, the needle always pointed north. Something hidden must be pulling it, he thought. This simple toy made him wonder about invisible forces in nature, sparking his lifelong love for science. Around the same time, his mother, Pauline, introduced him to the violin. At first, Albert didn't like the strict lessons. But when he discovered Mozart's music, everything changed. The beauty of the melodies fascinated him. Soon, he played for hours, lost in the patterns and harmonies. Music became his second passion, filling his mind with joy and inspiration. Young Albert saw connections between science and music. Both were like puzzles. Math had its equations, and music had its notes. He once said, "If I were not a physicist, I would probably be a musician." The compass taught him to question the unseen, while the violin taught him to feel the beauty of the world. Together, they shaped the curious, creative mind of the boy who would one day change science forever. Rebel without a formula, clashes with authority in school. Young Albert Einstein was no ordinary student. While other children followed strict rules, Albert asked too many questions. His teachers called him dreamy and slow. They didn't understand that his quiet rebellion came from a mind that hated memorizing facts and loved discovering truths. In Munich's rigid school system, Albert struggled. He hated the military-style discipline. Students had to sit straight, march in lines, and repeat lessons without thinking. Imagination is more important than knowledge, he believed, but his teachers disagreed. One even told him, "You'll never amount to anything." The only subjects he liked were math and science, where logic ruled instead of blind obedience. When a teacher snapped, "Your presence ruins the class's respect for me," 15-year-old Albert decided enough was enough. He left school early, telling his family he'd study on his own. Though adults saw a troublemaker, Albert was really a free thinker trapped in a system that feared curiosity. His rebellion wasn't laziness, it was the first spark of a genius who'd rewrite the laws of physics by questioning everything. A love letter to physics, Zurich Polytechnic, and Mileva Marek. At 17, Albert Einstein was finally free. After escaping his strict German school, he arrived at Zurich Polytechnic in Switzerland, a place where questions were welcomed, not punished. Here, he could lose himself in physics, his true love. But another love surprised him, a brilliant, quiet physics student named Mileva Marek. She was the only woman in his classes, and unlike others, she understood his passion for science. Together, they studied for hours, debating light energy and the mysteries of the universe. Albert called her his doll, but Mileva was far more. She was his equal, his partner in discovery. While professors dismissed Albert for skipping classes he preferred reading on his own, Mileva kept him focused. They dreamed of unraveling nature's secrets together. In letters, Albert wrote to her, "How happy and proud I'll be when we both conquer this work side by side." But life wasn't easy. Mileva faced prejudice as a female scientist, and Albert struggled to find a job after graduation. Yet in those Zurich years, their love and shared passion for physics lit a fire, one that would later ignite Einstein's world-changing theories. Patents and daydreams, the Bern Patent Office years. After finishing school, Albert Einstein struggled to find a job. Professors ignored him, and he even worked as a tutor to pay the bills. But in 1902, he finally got steady work as a technical expert at the Bern Patent Office in Switzerland. His job, reviewing inventions to see if they were truly new. Hour after hour, he studied sketches of machines, checking their details. To others, it might have been boring, but for Albert, it was perfect. The work trained his mind to spot hidden patterns, and the steady hours left his imagination free to wander. While the clock ticked in the quiet office, Albert's thoughts raced through the universe. He scribbled equations between patent papers, asking wild questions. What if time isn't the same for everyone? What if light holds the key to energy? His desk became a secret lab, where he conducted thought experiments, chasing beams of light in his mind while the world saw just another clerk. In 1905, his daydreams exploded into reality. That year, now called his miracle year, he published 4 revolutionary papers in his spare time. One introduced EMC, another redefined light itself. All from a man who, to his bosses, was simply good at his job. The patent office never knew it was paying a clerk's salary to the man rewriting physics. But for Albert, those quiet years in Bern were the launchpad to immortality. 1905, the year of light. In 1905, while working at the patent office, Albert Einstein had his greatest ideas. This amazing year is now called his miracle year. In just 12 months, he wrote 4 papers that changed science forever. First, he proved that light comes in tiny packets called quanta, later called photons. Scientists didn't believe it at first. Light was supposed to be a wave. But Albert showed it could be both. This idea later helped create computers and lasers. Next, he explained why tiny particles dance randomly in water, Brownian motion, finally proving atoms really exist. Before this, some scientists thought atoms were just a theory. Then came his most famous equation, E equals mc. It showed that energy and mass m are connected, with the speed of light c as the link. A tiny bit of mass could become a huge amount of energy. This is how stars shine and nuclear power works. Finally, his special theory of relativity changed how we see time and space. He proved that time slows down when you move very fast, and that space and time are connected like a fabric. All this from a 26-year-old patent clerk who did physics as a hobby. His ideas were so strange that even smart professors struggled to understand them. But they were all correct and made Albert Einstein famous. the weight of atoms, Brownian motion, and the atomic theory. In 1905, Albert Einstein solved a mystery that had puzzled scientists for 80 years and proved atoms are real. It all started with tiny pollen grains. In 1827, a scientist named Robert Brown saw something strange under his microscope. Little grains in water kept jiggling randomly, like they were alive. But they weren't alive, they just never stopped moving. No one could explain why. Einstein had an idea. He imagined the pollen grains were being hit by invisible water particles, atoms too small to see. Like a beach ball being bumped by many kids in a crowd, the grains would dance unpredictably. Using math, Einstein calculated exactly how the grains should move if atoms existed. When other scientists tested his predictions with better microscopes, they matched perfectly. For the first time, we could see atoms by watching their effects. This was huge because some top scientists still didn't believe in atoms. Einstein's work proved once and for all that everything is made of these tiny building blocks. His calculations even helped determine the size and weight of atoms, something no one had measured before. From a wiggling pollen grain to the foundation of modern chemistry, Einstein's 1905 paper turned an odd observation into proof that changed science forever. A theory ignited struggles for academic recognition. After his miracle year in 1905, Albert Einstein had brilliant ideas, but no one would listen. At first, most scientists ignored his papers. The ideas were too strange. A young patent clerk claiming to understand the universe, professors laughed. One even called relativity Jewish physics, a cruel insult at the time. For years, Einstein sent job applications to universities. Rejection after rejection came. He stayed at the patent office, working on physics late at night. His wife Mileva helped with the math, but life was hard. They had little money and a sick child. Slowly, a few brave scientists began testing his theories. In 1919, when astronomers proved light bends around the sun just as Einstein predicted, he became world famous overnight. Suddenly, the same universities that rejected him fought to hire him. But Einstein never forgot those lonely years. Later, he always encouraged young scientists. Don't let rejection stop you. Truth doesn't care who believes it until the world catches up. The fabric of spacetime, general relativity, unveiled 1915. For 10 years after his miracle year, Albert Einstein wrestled with a bigger idea, gravity. While Newton said gravity was a force, Einstein imagined something more amazing. Gravity is the universe bending. He pictured space and time like a stretchy trampoline. Heavy objects like stars make dents in this fabric. Planets roll around these dents like marbles circling a bowl. Even light changes direction when passing these cosmic curves. But the math was tremendously hard. Einstein worked until he got headaches. Sometimes he thought he'd solved it, then found mistakes. His marriage suffered, his health weakened, but he wouldn't quit. In November 1915, he finally completed his general theory of relativity. The equations showed gravity isn't a force, it's the shape of spacetime itself. Time runs slower near massive objects. The universe can stretch and warp. When British scientists proved starlight bent around the sun in 1919 just as Einstein predicted, he became world famous. Overnight, the stubborn patent clerk became the man who redesigned the universe. Eclipse of doubt, the 1919 experiment that shook the world. In 1919, the world was about to test Einstein's wildest idea, that gravity could bend light. Scientists organized 2 expeditions to catch a solar eclipse, one to Brazil, another to Africa. Why an eclipse? Only when the moon blocks the sun's glare can we see stars near it. Einstein predicted the sun's gravity would bend starlight, making stars appear slightly out of place. On May 29th, Eclipse Day, in Brazil, Rain nearly ruined everything. In Africa, telescopes overheated, but both teams got just enough photos. When scientists developed the glass plates, they gasped. The star positions matched Einstein's prediction exactly. Newton's gravity said light should bend half as much. Einstein was right. Newspapers worldwide shouted revolution in science. Suddenly, a German Jewish physicist who'd been ignored for years became the most famous scientist alive. Overnight, relativity transformed from crazy idea to accepted truth. The eclipse didn't just prove Einstein right, it changed how humanity saw the universe itself. Celebrity and solitude, fame versus isolation in Berlin. After the 1919 eclipse proved his theory, Einstein became the world's first scientific superstar. Crowds followed him in the street. Newspapers called him the new Newton. But in Berlin, where he lived, fame felt heavy. Einstein hated the attention. He played his violin alone at night to relax. While fans sent him endless letters, he often felt lonely. His marriage had ended, and Germany was becoming unstable. Anti-Jewish ideas were spreading, making his life harder. At parties, people asked him to explain relativity in one sentence. He'd joke, when you sit with a pretty girl for an hour, it feels like a minute. But sit on a hot stove for a minute, it feels like an hour. That's relativity. The crowd would laugh, but few really understood him. The more famous he became, the more he escaped into his work. In his quiet study, he wrestled with new ideas about the universe, finding peace where few could follow in the silent world of mathematics and thought. The quantum divide, the great debate with Bohr. In the 1920s, a new science called quantum mechanics was born, and it drove Einstein crazy. Young scientists like Niels Bohr showed that tiny particles behave in bizarre ways. Electrons can be in two places at once. Particles act differently when observed. Nature, at its core, is ruled by probability. Einstein refused to accept this. God does not play dice with the universe, he famously argued. At scientific conferences, he and Bohr would debate for hours, Einstein inventing clever thought experiments to challenge quantum theory, Bohr countering each one. Their most famous clash happened in 1927. Einstein said, "The moon isn't there only when we look at it." Bohr replied that at the quantum level, reality truly works differently. Though Einstein's criticisms helped improve quantum theory, he never fully accepted it. Today, we know both were partly right. Einstein's relativity governs big things like stars, while quantum rules the tiny atomic world. Their fiery debates birthed modern physics. The shadow of the swastika escaped from Nazi Germany. In 1933, the world watched in horror as Adolf Hitler rose to power in Germany. For Einstein, a Jewish scientist who had openly criticized the Nazis, danger came quickly. While Einstein was visiting America, Nazi raiders broke into his Berlin apartment, burned his books in public bonfires, put a $5,000 bounty on his head. Newspapers showed photos of Nazi stormtroopers carrying signs, "Not yet hanged." Justice delayed. Einstein's peaceful summer home was seized and turned into a Hitler youth camp. Princeton University in America quickly offered him a safe haven. As Einstein boarded the ship to his new home, he formally resigned from the Prussian Academy of Sciences with a powerful letter condemning Nazi attacks on intellectual freedom. He would never return to Germany. The man who had once been Berlin's most famous professor became one of Hitler's most famous refugees. From America, he would help other Jewish scientists escape while watching his beloved Europe descend into darkness. The letter that changed history, the atomic bomb and regret asterisk. In 1939, Einstein learned something terrifying. Nazi scientists might be building an atomic bomb. His famous equation E=mc had shown that a tiny amount of matter could become an enormous explosion. Though he was a pacifist, Einstein was convinced to warn President Franklin Roosevelt. His signed letter explained that a single uranium bomb could destroy a whole port. Germany might be working on this weapon. America should start nuclear research first. This letter launched the Manhattan Project, the secret program that built the first atomic bombs. But when the U.S. dropped bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, Einstein was devastated. "Had I known the Germans would fail, I would have never lifted a finger," he later said. For the rest of his life, Einstein fought against nuclear weapons. His greatest scientific discovery had become his deepest regret, a warning about science without wisdom. The Lonely Professor of Princeton and the Search for One Great Law. In 1933, Einstein moved to a small house in Princeton, New Jersey, as home for the rest of his life. The world saw him as the genius who solved the universe's secrets, but Einstein still had one big dream: to find a unified theory that could explain all forces of nature with one beautiful equation. Every morning, the white-haired professor walked to his office at Princeton University. Students would whisper as he passed, but few dared disturb him. He spent years filling blackboards with complex equations, trying to connect gravity, his theory of relativity, electromagnetism, light, electricity, the strange quantum world. Other scientists thought he was wasting time. "I must seem like an old fool chasing rainbows," he admitted. But he kept working, even when his hands shook with age. At night, he'd sit on his porch playing violin, staring at the stars. The answer never came, but today, scientists still chase Einstein's dream of the universe's perfect equation. The pacifist's dilemma, standing against war and witch hunts. After World War II, Einstein faced new battles, not in science, but in politics. The man who had reluctantly helped start the atomic age now became its loudest critic. As the Cold War began, Einstein warned that nuclear weapons could destroy civilization, called for world peace and cooperation between nations, refused to help build even more powerful hydrogen bombs. This made him unpopular in America during the McCarthy era. The FBI spied on him, calling him a radical. When asked to testify against suspected communists, he publicly refused, saying, "This is not how free people should behave." Young activists loved his courage, but newspapers attacked him. Still, Einstein never backed down. Until his last days, he kept fighting for peace, proving some equations are moral, not mathematical. The Last Symphony, Love, Loss, and the Unfinished Dream. In his final years, Einstein's white hair became wilder, his violin playing sadder. The man who had unlocked cosmic mysteries now faced simpler, human ones. His sister Maha, who had lived with him in Princeton, passed away first. Then his beloved secretary Helen Dukas, who had protected him for decades, grew old. Worst of all, his eldest son Hans Albert, now a grown professor himself, suddenly died of heart failure. Einstein kept working through the grief. His desk overflowed with pages of equations for the unified theory he couldn't quite solve. At night, he played Mozart but stopped mid-movement when his hands cramped. On April 17, 1955, he collapsed. In the hospital, he refused surgery. "I've done my share, let me go gracefully." As nurses watched, the dying genius scribbled one last set of calculations. The numbers trailed off and finished. His final breath came at 1:15 a.m. On his bedside table, the incomplete equations, his bent eyeglasses, and 12 pages of a speech pleading for nuclear peace. The world's greatest mind left quietly, still humming a symphony only he could hear. The day the clock stopped, the death and legacy 1955. On April 13, 1955, Einstein felt a sharp pain in his chest. The doctor told him his aortic aneurysm, a swollen blood vessel he'd known about for years, could burst anytime. "I'll go when I want," he joked, refusing surgery. "It's tasteless to prolong life artificially." For 4 days, he kept working. His hospital bed was covered with scribbled equations, his unfinished quest to unite all physics into one grand theory. Nurses heard him mutter German words as his fingers traced imaginary numbers in the air. On April 18th at 1:15 a.m., the aneurysm tore. As his breathing slowed, Einstein whispered something too quiet to hear. The clock on the wall ticked loudly in the silence. Then it stopped. But his ideas never did. That morning, his final manuscript vanished, stolen by a pathologist during the autopsy. His brain was preserved without permission in jars, studied for decades like a relic. Yet his real legacy lived on. MC-powered nuclear energy and haunted him as bombs fell. GPS satellites rely on his relativity math to work. Black holes, once mocked as fantasy, were photographed in 2019 just as he predicted. Einstein's body was cremated that same day, ashes scattered secretly. No grave, no statue, just a universe forever changed by the mind of a patent clerk who refused to let time tell him what to do. The Einstein paradox: genius, myth, and humanity. Albert Einstein was full of contradictions. The man who became science's greatest icon was also wonderfully, stubbornly human. The paradoxes of a genius. He solved the universe's secrets, but couldn't tie his shoelaces properly. His face is a symbol of intelligence. Yet he failed his first college entrance exam. He hated war, but his equation E equals mc led to the atomic bomb. He was world famous, but lonely, often playing violin alone at night. People turned him into a cartoon: wild hair, tongue sticking out. But the real Einstein was more interesting. Wrote love letters to his cousin, who later became his wife. Laughed when kids asked for homework help: "I forgot." He'd say, "Refused to be president of Israel, I lacked natural aptitude." He joked. Even his brain became a myth. After he died, scientists studied it, searching for genius. But Einstein knew the truth. It's not that I'm smart, I just stay with problems longer. His greatest lesson: brilliance doesn't make you less human. It makes your humanity matter more. Echoes of eternity: how his ideas shape our world. Einstein died in 1955. But his ideas never stopped changing the world. Like ripples in a pond, his thoughts still touch our lives every day. In your pocket, your smartphone's GPS works because of Einstein. His relativity math helps satellites correct their clocks. Without it, Google Maps would guide you into lakes. In your home, solar panels turn sunlight into electricity using photoelectric effect rules that won him the Nobel Prize in 1921. In space, the Hubble telescope sees warped galaxies exactly as Einstein predicted. Gravitational waves, proven in 2015, make cosmic music from colliding black holes. His hated spooky quantum physics now powers supercomputers. On Earth, doctors use his physics in PET scans to fight cancer. Even your TV remote works because he proved light comes in particles. Einstein would laugh at the irony: the absent-minded professor who couldn't remember his own phone number designed the invisible rules that run our digital world. His true monument isn't in statues, but in the silent hum of technology all around us, still whispering his name.